and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the Mayor and Speaker.
Welcome to this council meeting of the Borough of Telford and Wrekin. Today we welcome a delegation from the Interfaith Council, and please can I welcome Mr Sullivan of King Street Mosque, Mr Dalmi of Guru Nanak Sikh Temple Gurdwara Hadley, Les Pointer from Church of Jesus Christ of Later Day Saints, and Hezron Otti of Seventh Day Adventist Church. Please can I invite Mr Sullivan of King Street Mosque to lead us into prayer.
Hello and good evening to one and all. It's my first time that I've come to such an occasion, so I'm not trembling. Okay, but I must first and foremost thank Sean Davis here, the leader of the council. I also thank Raj Mehta for having invited me, and I thank all the other councillors as well for extending the invitation towards me and giving me this opportunity to lead you in prayer before you commence with your meeting. A couple of points before you crack on with the important work. We have a verse in the Quran which I'll recite to you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. إن الله يأمركم أن تؤدوا الأمانات إلى أهلها, which translates to, and God, meaning Allah, commands you that you fulfill your trusts towards those whom it is owed. Now this is a verse which is pertinent to myself, and it's pertinent to, I believe, everybody sat in this room. Because as a minister of religion and faith, I have a trust which weighs down on my shoulders. And each and every single one of us has been entrusted by our local communities with the trust that weighs down on our shoulders. So it's important we understand and we appreciate this position that we're in, and we utilize the position that we have, the authority that we have, to discharge of this duty that's before us. So I pray, and if we pray together, I pray to God Almighty Allah that He grants us all the ability, as weak as we may be, He keep us firm and He keep us strong, and He guide us and direct us in all of our actions, that we may fulfill this great trust that He has placed upon our shoulders, and the subjects that we have, may we fulfill their rights. And may the good work that we do be a source of goodness for us whilst we're here, and may it become a lasting legacy for once we have moved on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I ask the Democratic Services Officer to confirm any apologies received in advance?
Madam Speaker, we've had apologies from Councillor Jane Greenaway, Malcolm Smith, Veronica Fletcher, Ian Fletcher, Derek White, Nathan England and Gemma Offlands.
Thank you. Can I ask the Democratic Services Officer to confirm any declarations of interest received in advance, please?
None received, Madam Speaker.
To the list, Councillor Stephen Burrell. He's only just arrived. He's flown in from holiday from America. So, as you can imagine, he's in no fit state to come to the council meeting, really.
Can I ask the Democratic Services Officer to confirm any declarations of interest in advance, please?
None received, Madam Speaker.
Are there any declarations from the floor? None. So, item number 4. Can I have a proposal to confirm the minutes from the previous meeting held on Thursday, 19th of May 2022, please? Thank you, Councillor Davis, Councillor Overton. Before I move on to the substantive items in the agenda, I just want to remind members that in the interest of transparency, if anyone leaves the chamber during an item, they will not be able to vote on that item. Therefore, there is an intermission planned after item 11. Now, moving on to item 5, leaders' reports and announcements. I will now invite the leader, Councillor Sean Davis, to address the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The independent inquiry that published its report into child sexual exploitation on Tuesday highlights the pain and distress victims and survivors have gone through. I want to thank them for sharing their experiences with the inquiry. Their tenacity and resilience in speaking up is extraordinary. We are deeply sorry for the pain and suffering that they have suffered. I also want to thank the Sunday Mirror, Geraldine McKelvey, for shining a light on child sexual exploitation in Telford and supporting the victims and survivors tell their personal and harrowing stories. Additionally, we acknowledge the hard work of the inquiry chair, Tom Crother QC, and his team who have worked on the inquiry. The report commissioned by the Council dates back to 1989, and it heard evidence dating back to the 1970s. In 1989, I was 3. As I've said on numerous occasions, I am so proud to come from Telford. For me, it was a wonderful place to grow up. However, it clearly wasn't the same for many other children and young people of my generation and generations before and after. And this brings us great sadness. As a Telford dad now, and a corporate parent with responsibility for those children and young people in our care, I'm more determined than ever before to make our town a safe and happy place for future generations. The report has found areas where more could have been done over the last 3 decades to support victims and survivors and their families. The Chair has noted our progress, particularly since 2016. In his video statement, also released on Tuesday, he said, "I do consider today that the key organisations responsible for addressing child sexual exploitation in Telford, the Council and the police, have in place properly resourced, dedicated and professional teams that are well equipped to both identify child sexual exploitation, their risk areas, and to help children who are being exploited." Even though the inquiry acknowledges that we have made significant and transformational improvements, particularly since 2016, and the inquiry specifically states that services today are good, we fully accept and will act on all the inquiry's recommendations in full. It is for all of us, every elected member, every council officer, every partner, to make sure that these recommendations are fully implemented. I will be shortly speaking to the Conservative leader, Andrew Eade, the Liberal Democrat leader, Bill Tomlinson, as well as the Police and Crime Commissioner, John Campion, about how we work together to take these recommendations forward and how those recommendations are taken forward as a partnership across the key agencies. One early concern that I have read about from victims and survivors is about the funding of the Kate team. The team of dedicated professionals who are at the forefront of our response to tackling child sexual exploitation, who are commended throughout the report by the inquiry. The report proposes that we make sure that the team is properly funded for the next 5 years. I make a commitment, a personal commitment, that for as long as I and our team are running the council, that funding will be protected, and I'm sure I speak for everybody in the chamber that that will be the case, not just for the next 5 years, but beyond. I am truly humbled and thankful in equal measure that survivors Holly Archer and Scarlett Jones have agreed to be part of our implementing process moving forward, helping us to co-design our response to the inquiry's recommendations to make sure that we are doing the very best we can for those people who need us the most. I would like now to publicly thank Scarlett and Holly for holding us to account and for agreeing to being part of our journey moving forward. Together, all of us can ensure that we build a future we can be proud about, a future that ensures that our children, our grandchildren, now and for generations to come, are safe and happy in Telford, and share the experience that I did as a child growing up in this borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Moving on to the Mayor's announcements, item 6 on the agenda, I will now hand over to Mayor Councillor Raj Mehta.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to ask members to note the engagements undertaken since the last council meeting, showing on the list circulated to members. Tonight is my first full council meeting since my appointment in May, and it's been a busy start to my mayoral year. At the beginning of my appointment, I enjoyed attending many of our high street celebrations with my wife, the mayoress, and our children. A fantastic way to start my term. Over the last couple of months, I've continued to enjoy attending a number of new business openings, family fun days, and awards and presentations events, including the launch of the Queen's Award for Enterprise and a very special garden party hosted by the Lord Lieutenant of Shropshire. This particular event was generously hosted at Ollerton Hall in Wellington to celebrate the extraordinary contributions made by individuals within the year, local communities throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. As a town, we saw the celebrations of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee over the late spring bank holiday weekend, and what a pleasure it was to witness so many members of our local communities getting involved in the events taking place. In autumn, I will officially launching my charity appeal, and further details on this event will be made available to members in due course. I'd like to finish by saying that I am looking forward to continuing my term in office and attending many more forthcoming engagements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mehta. We now move on to item 7, public questions, and I can confirm that none have been submitted for this meeting. Next, we move on to item 8. We have one question. I would like to remind members that questions are circulated in advance and are also shown on the screen. I wish to invite Councillor Scott to ask his question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Residents in Newport and all over the borough are often having extreme difficulty getting a doctor's appointment due, I believe, to surgeries still operating under COVID guidelines. Often we are held in a queue for a long time to be triaged by a receptionist before being offered a call back by a GP. Some people cannot afford to stay on the phone for up to half an hour or beyond. Others give up and go across to A&E, which in itself causes other problems. Is there anything we as a council can do to get surgeries back using the pre-COVID appointment guidelines?
Just first of all, like to thank Councillor Scott for this question. It touches on, along with the cost of living crisis, probably the most important issue that residents raised, certainly with me and I believe with other members as well at the moment. There is real fear out there, I think it's fair to say, about whether one will get the service one needs in an urgent, an emergency situation, let alone the day-to-day appointments which one needs with a GP. So it's a crucial issue. I think you have to say that, first of all, it's a failure of workforce planning that goes back many years, and that there is no getting away from. But this council has raised at every turn possible this issue. At a recent Health and Wellbeing Board in June, we heard from we had a report from the ICS about this situation, and we recognised and told the NHS officer there that some practices were obviously performing better than others, and got an assurance that there were going to be some targeted interventions for those who were underperforming. What we were disappointed with was that we didn't have a separation of the data between Shropshire and Telford and Wrekin, and we urgently requested that. So we are onto this issue, but it seems an intractable one, especially with the staffing crisis. It's also worth saying that it is at the top of the list for the Scrutiny work programme as well, and I'm pleased to see that that is being taken forward and will be dealt with by Scrutiny in the near future. The frustration and the anxiety out there is tangible, and we will keep our eyes on this constantly and press our NHS colleagues to do what they can to address it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Scott?
I think I do, yes. And thank you, Councillor Burford, first for the answer. It's really, the follow-up is around the, as far as I'm aware, and I talked to my doctor, he tells me that the CCGs will not allow surgeries to go against the COVID guidelines. Apparently their argument is that the people with underlying illnesses and the elderly still need to be protected. So we're not allowed to actually turn up at a surgery and try and get any kind of appointment. So I suppose my follow-up question really is, are you aware, Councillor Burford, that the COVID guidelines are still in place and are being forced upon surgeries by the CCGs and Health England?
Yeah, I mean, there are COVID guidelines in place for GP surgeries. What we are told when we ask this question is that the number of face-to-face appointments are increasing. There is a new normal, which is to do with a mix of telephone consultation and face-to-face, and that is determined by that initial conversation. But the guidelines certainly are there in terms of a preferred way of dealing with things. But I do understand people's frustration. I think the first difficulty they find is getting through at all and waiting on the phone. And the second problem is getting face-to-face if they want it and need it. And we're reassured, we're assured that that should be possible whenever it's requested. But we hear stories otherwise in the case of some practices. So we're onto this, we're pursuing it. But the answer to your supplementary is yes, there are still guidelines in place for GPs.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now move on to item 9, Cabinet decisions made since the last meeting of the Council. I would remind members that these should be questions of clarity only on items marked as key decisions on the report. Are there any questions of clarification, not debate, from members? Nope. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 10. I would like to invite Councillor Ray Evans to propose the recommendation.
Formally move, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Yes. Councillor Thomason.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Could we go? Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's that time of year again when a report comes out showing that we're projecting an overspend on children's social services and probably adult social services. And the way I'm saying it is of no criticism at all of the local authority. It's demand-led. If children need our care, then we have to provide that. And it seems that every year it's a growing figure. And it just seems unfair to us that this isn't being equitably funded by the government. So I acknowledge the financial monitoring report we're getting, but also want people to know that those pressures every single year on adult and children's services, which are forcing us very often to cut other services that we provide to be able to afford those. And it's not tenable. This should be funded more fairly by the government to take into account that council tax isn't the answer to this, because people can only afford so much, and people can't even afford the council tax bills, many of them, that they're getting already. It's an unfair system. It needs backing by the government through general taxation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Or? Very well. Could I invite Councillor Overton? Would you like to say anything? No? Councillor Ray Evans? Can I have a show of hands in favour of the proposals, please? Can I have a show... Oh. I think that's carried. I think that's carried. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 11A. I would like to invite Councillor Ray Evans to propose the recommendations.
I will speak to this, Madam Speaker. Council, I'm pleased to be able to tell you that the estimated revenue outturn position for the last financial year, after the proposed transfer to reserves and balances, will be within budget by £48,000. Furthermore, due to the sustained effective financial management, the year-end position has also allowed some funds to be set aside to support our medium-term financial strategy. Capital spending ended the year at just over £57 million against an approved budget of £73 million. The programme of expenditure continued to be impacted by the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. However, all schemes are now in progress, with some rephasing of expenditure into the current year, which will also generate some Treasury management benefits. COVID-19 continued to have an impact on collection rates during 21-22. However, at the end of the year, income collection was ahead of the target set for council tax and business rates, while sales ledger was slightly behind. The unaudited accounts for New Place show that it generated an operating profit after interest and taxation of £407,000, with the company issuing a dividend of £163,000, which was paid to the council as its sole investor. The council also received other income from New Place totalling £1.8 million net of additional interest and other marginal costs. And I would remind members that the financial benefits that arise from New Place are invested into providing frontline services, some of those which are being squeezed, which Councillor Tomlinson mentioned. Members, this council can be rightly proud that this outturn position has been achieved after delivering £7 million of budget savings throughout last year, giving an ongoing savings total of £133 million since 2009. That's equivalent to around £1,600 per annum less per household that this council has available to fund services in this borough. Council, it is this council's long and impressive track record of sound financial management that has meant that we are well placed to withstand the continuing financial impact of coronavirus pandemic, government grant reduction, and it is a testament to the hard work and professionalism of Cabinet members and our senior and wider management teams that despite the significant and unprecedented financial pressures that the Council has ended the year within budget. I thank all concerned. Council, can I ask you to approve the recommendations at section 2 of this report?
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Very well. We shall move to the vote. Can I have a show of hands in favour of the proposals, please? Can I have hands against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. We move on to item 12, a 5-minute intermission. No, you don't want it? Very well. Thank you, everyone. Item 13 is recommendations from boards and committees. 13A is a recommendation from the Scrutiny Management Board. I would like to invite Councillor Steve Reynolds to propose the recommendations.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before you tonight is the Council's annual scrutiny report covering the municipal year of 21-22. The report details the key work of our committees throughout that period, both at formal committee and through working groups. Scrutiny continues to fulfil its vital role as the Council's critical friend, and both in person, meetings and working groups utilising the technological solutions we all become so used to throughout COVID, to conduct in-depth reviews of matters of key importance to our residents. The impact of COVID-19 continues, and recovery is now threatened by a cost of living crisis defined by inflation, wage stagnation and tax hikes. In the face of these multifaceted challenges, the work of our scrutiny committees is as vital as it has ever been. I propose and recommend the Scrutiny Management Board Report 21-22. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that seconded, Councillor Turley? Thank you. Are there any comments? Yes, Councillor Eade.
Thank you, Speaker. If I can refer to, first of all, page 81 of the Scrutiny Report. And this is regarding children finding it hard to return to school due to gaps in their learning and prolonged periods of isolation. Could I ask a question? Do we have any figures on how many children are affected by that? And going over to the next page, on page 82, and I quote here from the report, the committee heard that the authority had worked hard throughout the pandemic to ensure vulnerable children were in schools. Again, do we have any figures regarding that, and how many children are in fact missing from school in the borough?
Thank you. Who would like to answer that? Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Eade. Obviously, I don't actually have those figures to hand tonight, but I'm sure you'll get them within the week.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other comments? Councillor Dugmore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's just a question on the transport strategy from the Community Scrutiny Committee. I just wondered whether or not I could have a figure for the number of electric vehicle charging points that the council actually has. Public, what's split between public and the private ones for the council's electric vehicles?
I don't have the figure off the top of my head, but we had a cabinet report today on EV charging points, which included all numbers for across the borough that are currently in place. So I'll send that to you, Nigel.
Thank you. 46, 499 and 51.
Thank you, Councillor Overton. Are there any other comments? Councillor Reynolds, do you have anything you would like to respond to?
No, nothing at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All those in favour, please show your hands. That's carried. Thank you. Item 14 is notices of motion. Item 14A, can Councillor Andrew Eade move the motion as detailed in the agenda?
Thank you, Speaker. I've no doubt that the administration is only too well aware of the comments made by the Chief Executive of Care England, who recently stated that vulnerable people will be at serious risk if Telford and Wrekin Council does not address its inadequate funding of social care. That's a very serious charge for an independent and non-political body such as Care England to make. Clearly, in Professor Green's professional opinion, the proposed 3% council increase in care home pay rates, together with a 6.6% increase in domiciliary care, are both wholly inadequate. Underfunding care providers in this way could lead to severe difficulties for a vital service, which we, as an authority, depend on, and in so doing puts vulnerable people in our borough at serious risk. As I said, this is a vital service for us and one which we must help sustain for proper and quality care of vulnerable members of our community. While you are aware of Care England's comments, no doubt, I'm equally aware of the government's health and social care levy, the 1.36 billion nationally, which will help Telford and Wrekin to increase funding we pay to our social care, adult social care providers. The market sustainability and fair cost of care fund is part of a wider reform which will hopefully both provide choice for those in care, increase sustainable opportunities for those providing it. Critically, care providers need certainty over both their income and costs, plus the ability to attract, train and retain quality staff. I'm also aware that as a prerequisite of receiving funding from this levy, that the administration has recently had to conduct a fair cost of care survey amongst local providers of health and social care. I look forward to the outcome of that survey being published by this council, alongside a detailed response plan ensuring that the budget allocation for social care is actually increased to reflect the fair cost of care identified by the council's providers, not only in this fiscal year, but also in the future. Now, in anticipation of this, Speaker, and I did want to speak to you about this during the interval, I'm proposing to withdraw the motion pending the publication of the Council's survey results and the administration's response to it.
Can I ask, is that agreed by the seconder? And now does the meeting agree? I'll take that as a yes, thank you. Thank you all for attending. We will see you at the next full council meeting. Please, could I ask that members remain seated while the public gallery exits the auditorium. The meeting is now closed.